I'd been working on my first novel really in like little bits and pieces for years before I settled down to write it. I had an office, I had a study. I really found that I couldn't get work done there because I was too distracted by the proximity of domestic pressures and concerns. And so I had to really be honest with myself about that and say, okay, maybe this is a lovely desk for sitting at and, writing emails to my friends when I get home at night, and it's not going to be the place where I write my novel. I really needed a space where I could shut those concerns out. Choosing the right space to work and to get started is probably in many ways very similar to choosing a voice, like choosing the voice in which you decide to tell your story. You just have to find the one that works and discard any assumptions that you might have about what you might imagine might be an appropriate or conducive space. It's the place that works, like it's the place where you get the writing done. That's all it is. And for some people that might be writing in their notebook on the bus, and they'll have to spend all day on the bus. And for some people it might be a grassy knoll. I can't imagine anything worse. The noise of other people isn't distracting to me, but noise of traffic or birds, animals, that's distracting. That's not good. Books have an incredibly intense meaning for me. I like libraries as a space where that's respected and people gather who all quite commonly respect that. I like writing in them because I like the idea of the experience of being around people who are also engaged in writing projects and reading projects. I love the atmosphere in the Mitchell. There's a lovely atmosphere when you walk into this vast space, and sometimes it's very busy and sometimes it's quieter. But what you always find in the Mitchell is a range of different kinds of people engaged in a whole range of interesting sort of projects. I found that space so sort of conducive to working and concentrating and feeling part of a kind of community of people, also engaged in their own individual intellectual projects. Unlike a cafe, you can sit at a desk for 8 hours at a time if you like, and no one will ask you if you want another coffee. Well, several advantages that a library has over a cafe. And I think probably the chief one for most people would be quiet. And I don't really need a lot of quiet, so that's not that important to me, but it is for a lot of people. The main one is time. And there are some cafes where the people who run the cafe are very generous and don't mind people sitting there with their computers for hours and hours and hours on end. But when I have a writing day, I like to spend about 6 hours, if I can, sitting down in the same place and writing. And I think it's sort of difficult to ask that of a cafe in some ways. Not too much subject to procrastination problems. Mainly because with my first book, I loved doing it so much and I'd waited so long to do it. So in the case of The Legacy, I didn't have too much writer's block, and I wrote most of it fairly quickly. I wrote most of it in about 8 months, which I now realise is a really short time. And with my second book, I had a very tough deadline to meet. You just find the space that will allow you to work in the way you need to work just to get the words down on the page, which is just, for the most part, sort of squeezed into the interstices, basically, of everyday life. Like, you write when you can, you write in the space you have and the time that you have. Yes, I'm a library writer.